The year is 2174. Humanity has spread across the stars, distant colonies on Mars, the moons of Jupiter, and outposts on asteroids. But the galaxy beyond Earth's reach remains vast and largely unexplored. Most of the known alien civilizations remain shrouded in mystery. Some are friendly, others hostile, and many prefer to stay hidden, content to let the young species of Earth stumble through their early days of space travel. Then, on a cold October night, something unexpected happens. A signal, a transmission not from any known alien civilization, pierces through the quiet vastness of space. It's weak at first, almost imperceptible, but it's not random noise. Earth's deep space listening stations, set up to monitor any extraterrestrial transmissions, catch it. The signal isn't complex. It's a series of mathematical patterns, a prime number sequence, and a rhythmic pulse. To the scientists who receive it, it's clear. This is not an accidental transmission. It's deliberate, and someone out there is trying to reach humanity. The United Earth Council, a coalition of world leaders who oversee humanity's space exploration efforts, pounces on the discovery. While governments around the world debate the origins of the signal, an emergency session is convened. The implications are staggering. An advanced species, potentially far more sophisticated than humanity, is reaching out. What does this mean for Earth? Is this an invitation, a warning, or a threat? At the forefront of this effort is Dr. Lillian Klein, one of humanity's brightest astrophysicists and the first to decipher the message's basic structure. She's been working in the field of alien languages for decades, but nothing like this has ever been encountered. The signal is directed at us, specifically, Dr. Klein says, her voice steady yet laced with awe. It's not a message for any random species. It's aimed at humanity. We can't ignore this. The news spreads like wildfire. Across the world, from the quietest rural villages to the most bustling cities, everyone knows that humanity has just received a message from the stars. In public forums, there's speculation. Some believe the signal is a challenge, others a sign of hope, but most agree that this is a once-in-a-lifetime moment. But the excitement is tempered by caution. The signal's source is unknown and the message is vague. There's no guarantee that responding won't lead to disaster. The Earth Council convenes for weeks, discussing the risks. Many leaders are hesitant. They argue that the cost of responding could be far greater than the benefits. What if the aliens who sent the signal are hostile? What if they're testing humanity's vulnerability? We can't risk it, says Admiral Helga Fisher, the head of Earth's Space Defense Force. We're not ready for an intergalactic war. We don't even know who or what we're dealing with. Despite these objections, a small but powerful faction of the Council sees this as humanity's moment to take the next step on the galactic stage. Among them is Captain Ilara Jensen, a decorated military officer with years of experience in space combat and deep space exploration. We can't stay in the shadows forever, Captain Jensen argues, standing firm at a council meeting. This is our chance to show the universe that humanity is ready. We've always been defined by our ability to adapt, to overcome the odds. This could be our opportunity to make allies, to learn, and to expand our place in the stars. It's Jensen's words that finally convince the council. After heated debate, they vote to respond. The decision is made. Humanity will reach out to whoever or whatever sent the signal. The Earth Communications Network is instructed to send a simple reply. One word, clear and direct. Here. With that, the wheels of history begin to turn. In the days that follow, humanity braces for what's to come. The world watches as Earth's top engineers and scientists work around the clock to ensure their response is heard across the stars. A massive transmission is broadcast through the most powerful communication arrays ever created. For the first time, Earth's voice is cast into the vast dark. But as the response is sent, the initial excitement begins to fade. The signal was weak to begin with, and now there's only silence. Weeks pass with no further word. Doubts begin to creep in. Did they misinterpret the signal? Did the aliens hear them? Or worse, had they offended them? The fleet's creation is delayed. Many members of the United Earth Council fear that they've made a grave mistake. Some argue that it was reckless to respond at all. It's Captain Ilara Jensen, once confident in their decision, who now questions the path ahead. Staring at the empty void of space from her office, she finds herself wondering, what if humanity had made a terrible mistake? What if they had just signed their own death sentence? But just as doubt begins to settle in, an unexpected event occurs. The signal returns. This time, it's clearer, more structured, and there, embedded within the message is something they weren't expecting. Coordinates. Specific coordinates that point far beyond the reaches of Earth's territory in the depths of unexplored space. And the message that accompanies it is short but potent. We await. This sets the stage for the next part of the story, where humanity will have to decide whether they are truly ready to face the unknown and what awaits them beyond. When the message arrived, the world was forced to reckon with the enormity of the decision. The coordinates, an invitation, not a command, spanned across thousands of light years, deeper into unexplored space than humanity had ever ventured. The question no longer hung in the air of whether they should respond. It had become a matter of how. Humanity's leaders convened again, but this time the urgency was palpable. There was no going back. The fleet must be assembled. Admiral Helga Fisher, who had initially opposed responding to the signal, now found herself caught in the web of doubt and resolve. If the message was a trap, it could mean the end of everything they had built. Yet something in her gut told her that this opportunity was too significant to ignore. Every tactical instinct screamed for preparation, and so the preparations began. Over the next few weeks, Earth's finest minds, scientists, engineers, military strategists, worked furiously to assemble the fleet. The mission was clear. Humanity would answer the call. But how would they face the unknown? Captain Ilara Jensen was appointed as the mission leader. Known for her unmatched leadership in deep space operations, she was a natural choice. Ilara had commanded a variety of interplanetary vessels, but this mission was something entirely different. The weight of the unknown was unlike anything she had encountered before. Still, she understood what was at stake. To lead humanity into the unknown was a responsibility she wouldn't take lightly. At her side was Dr. Xavier Lee, a brilliant scientist and one of the foremost experts in alien technologies. He had spent the better part of his career studying alien artifacts found on distant moons and derelict ships, but nothing had prepared him for the sheer magnitude of this moment. They were about to make first contact, if the coordinates led to something or someone. Dr. Lee spent hours studying the received signals, working tirelessly to decode any other hidden meanings. But the message remained an enigma. He knew this. Could be the breakthrough of the century, or their undoing. Captain, I don't know what we'll find out there, but I've analyzed the signals. They seem to be laced with a form of binary we've never encountered. It's advanced. If we're able to unlock the encryption, it could give us some insight into who or what we're dealing with, he said, eyes focused intently on his screen. Ilara nodded. Keep working. We'll need every advantage we can get. The fleet that would be sent was unlike anything humanity had ever assembled. It wasn't just a military operation. Alongside the warships were research vessels, medical crews, engineers, diplomats, and communication experts. This was a mission of exploration, diplomacy, and survival, all in one. Among the crew was Lieutenant Holt Dawson, a seasoned tactician with experience in high-stakes operations. He'd seen everything from pirate raids on the outer colonies to full-scale wars in the asteroid belts, but he was cautious about the unknown. "You know this might be a mistake, right?" Holt asked, sitting across from Captain Jensen in the briefing room. His voice was low, his eyes sharp. "We're sending a fleet into the unknown, against a species we know nothing about. We've barely been able to reach our own stars, and now we're headed into a place where there's no telling what we'll find. If they're hostile, we're done for." Alara met his gaze. "If they wanted to destroy us, they would have done so already. They sent a signal, a message. This isn't the act of a species bent on war. Or it's the prelude to it," Holt said darkly, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. "We've seen civilizations wipe themselves out with less provocation. Maybe this is the first step." Alara didn't respond immediately. Holt's words weighed heavily on her. He was right to be cautious, but her instincts told her something different. Humanity had survived against the odds before. They had fought their way from the ashes of war, famine, and isolation. Whatever waited beyond the stars, humanity had always found a way. "We're not like them," she finally said, standing up and moving to the window that overlooked the gleaming ships in their docks. "They may have technology, strategy, and strength. But we have something they can't understand, something that makes us different. We are not the most powerful species in the galaxy, but we will fight for every inch, and we won't back down." The fleet was ready to depart. The Horizon, the flagship of the mission, was a sleek, formidable vessel, a symbol of humanity's ambition. The remaining ships, including reconnaissance and support craft, were equipped with everything humanity could muster. At the helm of the Horizon, Alara Jensen stood at the command center, feeling the weight of history press down on her shoulders. Her crew was ready. They had no illusions about the risks they faced. But they were united in one simple truth. Humanity had always moved forward, no matter the cost. As the engines roared to life and the fleet slipped away from Earth's orbit, Captain Jensen looked out at the vast, empty expanse of space. The stars twinkled in the distance, cold and indifferent to their journey. But out there was a spark of hope, a chance for humanity to prove that they could not only survive, but thrive. In the depths of space, in the silent void, there was a chance to rewrite their story. It was a long journey ahead, but the fleet was ready. They were no longer just explorers. They were humanity's. The journey into the unknown was silent, save for the hum of the Horizon's engines and the occasional crackle of static across the fleet's communication channels. For days, the ships drifted farther from Earth's embrace, through the cold, silent stretches of space. The light from the distant stars cast long shadows, their faint gleam the only indication that they weren't truly alone in the universe. Captain Alara Jensen stood at the command center, her eyes fixed on the large viewport. The vastness of space had always been humbling, but now it felt like a great chasm, a gap that stretched between humanity and the answers they sought. It was a reminder that they were on the edge, standing where no one had stood before. Dr. Xavier. Lee, standing at a console behind her, was busily running diagnostics on the ship's systems. He'd been equally captivated by the signal, though for different reasons. Where Alara saw a mission to lead, Xavier saw a puzzle, a riddle that begged to be solved. For weeks, he had been analyzing the alien transmission, trying to extrapolate more than the single message they'd received. "Captain," he spoke, his voice filled with both excitement and tension, "I think I've cracked part of the signal's encryption. It's remarkable. I believe it's a form of communication that evolves, like an algorithm that adapts as it's received. If we can intercept it in real time, we might gain further insights." Alara's attention shifted to him. "How long until we can use it to send something back? We need to make contact again before we reach their coordinates." "I'm working on it. If I can reverse engineer it further, we may be able to create a method of communication, one that they can understand, and we can understand in turn. But it's not guaranteed." She nodded. "Do your best. We don't know what we'll find at those coordinates, but if we're to make contact, we need to be ready. As the days turned into weeks, the crew settled into their routine. Despite the uncertainty, morale remained high. The unknown destination kept them focused, and the drive to answer the call of the stars was a unifying force. Even those who had once doubted the mission were beginning to see it as something greater than just exploration. This was about legacy. This was about humanity stepping into the vastness, not as children of Earth, but as equals among the stars. Yet as the fleet drew closer to the coordinates, now only a few days away, an unease began to settle over Ilara. The silence from the alien source had been deafening since the initial signal. The lack of further communication was unsettling. It didn't fit with the message they had first received. "We await." That wasn't a phrase of threat, nor one of indifference. It suggested patience, perhaps even curiosity, but the silence, longer than they had anticipated, felt like an absence, a hollow that made every passing moment feel heavier. Then came the first sign, a flash, almost imperceptible across the sensors. Ilara stiffened, her fingers tapping quickly on the command console. "Did anyone else see that?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. "Aye, Captain," responded Holt Dawson, who was stationed at Tactical. "A flash on long-range scans. It wasn't a ship, but it came from the direction of the coordinates. Something just pulsed out there." "Did we intercept it?" Ilara asked, her pulse quickening. Xavier Lee turned sharply from his station. "Not quite. It's a signal of some kind, but it's faint. It's distant, almost like it was meant to go unnoticed." "Is it from the same source?" Ilara pressed, trying to understand the meaning of the pulse. "I believe so," Dr. Lee answered. "The pattern resembles the encryption from the first transmission. If we're reading it right, this could be their way of acknowledging us, calling us closer, perhaps." "That's a relief," Ilara muttered. She had feared they might have been wrong, that their response had been ignored or, worse, met with hostility. But the pulse? It was a sign that they weren't alone in the dark. They were still out there. The fleet continued to course through the blackness with a renewed sense of purpose. The stars outside were now more than just distant beacons. They were the guideposts to something greater. Still, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Hours later, the signal pulsed again, more clearly this time. The transmission wasn't coming from a single source, but from multiple points, a web of signals, converging in a way that hinted at intelligence. But these pulses weren't coded in the simple sequences they had first received. These signals were complex, layered in ways that challenged their technology. "What is it?" Holt asked, voice tight. "We need to be careful," Ilara warned, her eyes narrowing. This could be a trap. Xavier Lee wasn't so sure. "It's not a threat. Not yet. But these are coordinates, not just random signals. If they want us to go there, there must be something waiting." "Something waiting," Ilara whispered, her voice trailing off as she watched the patterns unfold. The closer they got, the more intricate the signals became. It was as though the universe itself was being unveiled piece by piece. The journey was reaching its critical juncture. The fleet was nearly at the coordinates, but now the question wasn't what lay ahead. It was whether humanity was truly prepared for the answer. What awaited them in the... As the horizon and its fleet approached the coordinates, the vastness of space seemed to shrink, compressed by the sheer weight of what was to come. The signals continued to pulse in intricate patterns, steadily growing stronger, as if guiding them toward an unseen destination. The crew, tense but resolute, waited in the quiet hum of the ship. Their mission was clear: answer the call and learn whatever they could from the unknown. Captain Ilara Jensen stood at the helm, watching the stars slip by, each one a distant echo of a world she would never touch. They were entering a region of space uncharted by any human vessel. The coordinates led to a region on the edge of a galaxy, known to humans as the Eventide Expanse, a place where stars burned too hot and gravity bent in strange ways. It was the final frontier of human exploration, the edge of the map where all navigation was based on theory and guesswork. Captain Holt Dawson, stationed at Tactical, spoke with a hint of disbelief. There's a massive anomaly ahead. It doesn't register as anything natural. Gravity readings are off the scale. Alara's hand tightened around the console. She could see it now, like a hole in the fabric of space itself. The anomaly seemed to absorb light, casting an unsettling shadow over everything around it. Whatever it wasn't a black hole. It had none of the signature markers of gravitational collapse. No, this was something different, something far stranger. Xavier Lee walked up, his face pale. It's not a gravitational pull. The readings, they're all wrong. The signal is emanating from within this anomaly. Then that's where we're headed, Ilara said firmly. She could feel the tension rise among the crew. This was no longer just a simple mission of exploration. They were moving towards something far more complicated than they could have imagined. A place of raw unknown, where all their technology and knowledge might count for little. As the fleet approached, the anomaly's influence began to grow more pronounced. The ship's navigation systems started glitching. Time seemed to stretch and compress, warping in ways that defied reason. The horizon began to rock gently as though caught in the grip of an unseen force. Alara's grip tightened on the edge of her seat. She could hear the hum of the engines grow louder as they inched closer to the event horizon of whatever this was. The other ships in the fleet, now scattered out of formation, struggled to stay on course. "All ships, hold formation," Ilara commanded. "Steady! We've come this far. We're not backing down now." Xavier approached the central console, his hands trembling. "Captain, whatever this is, it's not just a natural phenomenon. It's like someone built this. The pattern in the anomaly, it's structured, precise." Ilara's eyes narrowed. A structure in the very fabric of space? A creation of some kind? Can you make sense of it? Before he could answer, the anomaly's gravity field shifted, and the horizon lurched forward. For a moment, the crew was weightless, floating in a silent void. Ilara's heart raced. She knew something had changed, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Then the anomaly released them, as though it had simply tested their resolve. The ship settled back into position, but they were no longer just in proximity. They were inside. The horizon was surrounded by an ocean of blackness, filled with twisting lights and jagged edges, a universe of shadow. It was like being inside, a living, breathing thing. "Report!" Ilara barked, the urgency in her voice hardening. "All systems are online, Captain," Holt replied. His voice was steady, but Ilara could hear the faint edge of uncertainty. "But the ships, Captain, they're—" He paused, staring at the view screen. "They're not responding." Ilara's eyes flicked to the other ships in the fleet. They were still there, hovering just outside the anomaly's core, but they were frozen in place, their engines sputtering in and out of function as though caught in the grip of some unnatural force. The signals from the other vessels were becoming erratic, slipping between static and complete silence. Xavier stepped forward, his face grim. "It's as if the anomaly is locking us in, and it's not just the ships. I'm reading something else. Something alive." Ilara froze. "Alive? You're saying this thing is sentient?" Xavier nodded. "It's not a planet. It's not even a star. But it has structure, order. I can't explain it, but there's an intelligence to it, and it's watching us." Suddenly, the view from the ship's windows shifted. The darkness outside the horizon began to pulse with faint blue light, swirling around the ships like some kind of living fog. Each pulse seemed to carry an emotion, An invitation. A beckoning. Is it trying to communicate? Alara murmured to herself. She leaned forward, trying to make sense of the chaos around her. Was this the source of the signal they'd been chasing all along? Then, the pulse grew stronger, more pronounced until it enveloped the entire fleet. The crew felt it. An unspoken message, pressing against their minds like a distant call. Words formed in the silence, unspoken but clear. You are here. You are not alone. Alara's breath caught in her throat. The message was simple, but the implications were staggering. They weren't alone. Whatever had reached out to them was aware. And whatever came next, humanity would face it head-on. For better or worse, the tension in the bridge of the horizon was palpable as Alara and her crew adjusted to their new, unsettling reality. The vast anomaly that had once seemed like a distant impossibility was now all around them, its strange, shifting presence, pressing in from every side. The pulsing light that had enveloped the fleet wasn't just a signal, it was something more. Alive, intelligent, aware. Alara paced the command center, her mind racing. What did it mean by, "You are not alone"? She murmured aloud, more to herself than to anyone in particular. Xavier Lee, who had been meticulously scanning the data, looked up from his console. I think it's exactly what we feared and hoped for. It's not just a message. It's a first contact scenario. His voice was thin with awe. It's telling us that something is here, and it's watching us. The crew exchanged glances, some filled with dread, others with cautious optimism. There had been no communication from Earth since the fleet entered the anomaly, and all of their attempts to re-establish contact with the rest of the fleet had been futile. The lights outside the ship pulsed and shifted, creating a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes in the void, patterns that were both hypnotic and foreboding. Alara rubbed her temples. We're in the dark. Literally and figuratively, the fleet's been cut off from us, and there's no way to track their positions. We're completely isolated. Not isolated, Captain, Holt Dawson, the ship's tactical officer, interjected. We're still here. The fleet's still here, too. They're just caught in this thing. Like us. All of us are together, but it's like a fog. Can't see anything beyond the light, Xavier added. This anomaly, it's like a communication network, a web. Every signal, every pulse is a part of something bigger. It's as though we've crossed into another layer of existence. We've broken through something. This place, it's more than just a point in space. It's a threshold. The word hung in the air like a heavy truth. Threshold. They had crossed it. Alara's mind raced. The data that Xavier had gathered from the signals before entering the anomaly indicated that the source of the transmission they'd first received was not a single entity, but a network, a series of interconnected stations or beings that spanned across the galaxy, perhaps beyond, and now they were inside it. But the more Alara thought about it, the more she felt the pull of something deeper. The pulse outside had been unmistakable, a beckoning, almost like a challenge. Could it be a test? Something probing humanity's readiness for what lay beyond. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden appearance of a new, unexpected transmission on their sensors. It wasn't the usual pulse or encryption pattern. It was direct, linear, and unmistakable humanity. The word echoed in the void, transmitted directly into their communication systems. What is this? Alara demanded, staring at the screen as the word humanity blinked over and over. I don't know, Captain, said Xavier. It's like they've read our data, our records. They know who we are. How? Could it be a translation error? Alara asked, but her voice lacked conviction. No, this wasn't an error. This was intentional. Something had reached out and learned about humanity, and now it was responding. Another pulse of light flooded the viewport, brighter than before. Then, in the silence that followed, the voice came. "We have watched your kind. You are different, but you are like us." The words carried weight, as if the very fabric of space and time had bent around them, delivering the message with an unearthly resonance. The crew went still, a shiver running through every one of them. The voice, soft yet unyielding, felt like it was speaking directly into their minds, not their ears. Alara felt the intensity of it, the weight of the words. Something inside her stirred. Like us? How can they know us? Xavier was already at work, his fingers flying across the console, attempting to decode further transmissions or uncover any context. This is beyond just technology. We've always feared this day would come, but now it feels different. It's like they understand us, not as primitives, but as equals. Holt spoke, his voice filled with a mix of fear and awe. But are we ready for this? If they know us, then they must know what we've been through, our history, the wars, the suffering, the way we've risen from nothing. Do they see that? Are we worthy? Worthy? Alara repeated, stepping forward. Maybe that's exactly what this is about. Maybe this is the test. We're not here to prove ourselves to them, but to ourselves. The universe is vast, and we've fought to carve a place in it. But we've never faced anything like this. Before anyone could respond, the transmission changed. The words shifted, fluid, flowing like a melody in the void. The trial begins. Are you ready to step into the unknown? To be something more than your kind has ever dreamed? The message left a silence in its wake, thick with anticipation, and the weight of the unknown. Whatever it was, whatever this force or entity was, it had begun something. A trial, a challenge, perhaps. But for Alara, for the crew of the Horizon, one thing was clear. They had crossed the threshold into something, larger than they could ever imagine, and now. The silence that followed the transmission felt heavy, almost oppressive. Alara stood at the front of the command center, her gaze fixed on the vast expanse outside the Horizon's windows. The anomaly pulsed softly, the light shifting in eerie patterns, as if alive. The message still echoed in her mind. The trial begins. Are you ready to step into the unknown? To be something more than your kind has ever dreamed? It wasn't just a question, it was a challenge. And for the first time, in her career as a captain, Alara felt the weight of her responsibility more than ever. It wasn't just about the crew anymore, it was about humanity itself. Captain, Holt's voice broke the silence, pulling her back to the present. We've been cut off from the fleet completely. Communications are failing across the board. We have no idea where they are or if they're even still operational. Alara nodded grimly. I know. We're on our own. But we're going to push forward, Holt. We've come too far to turn back now. Xavier Lee, his face illuminated by the eerie glow of the anomaly outside, leaned in from his console. The readings, they're fluctuating. It's like the very fabric of reality is bending in and out. We've never encountered anything like this before. This could be the edge of the universe as we know it, or it could be something older. Something far more advanced. And dangerous? Alara added. She knew they were walking a razor-thin edge, but there was no going back. If they turned around now, humanity would never know what lay beyond this cosmic boundary. Suddenly, another pulse of light shot through the viewport, brighter than before. It was as though the very space around them had responded to their thoughts. The light took shape, swirling in intricate patterns, forming an image. A massive ethereal structure that seemed to pulse with life. It was a city. No, more like a complex network of floating, crystalline spires, stretching as far as the eye could see. The scale was impossible, defying logic, as if the laws of physics themselves had been rewritten in this strange place. Then came the voice again. "The trial begins now. You must prove your worth." Ilara's heart skipped a beat. The words were not just a proclamation, they were a command. She looked at the crew, the faces of men and women who had come from Earth's struggling colonies, from every corner of the human race. They were scared, but they were also filled with something more: determination. "Ready or not, we're here," she muttered to herself. She took a breath and addressed her crew. "This is our chance to show the universe who we are. We may be new to the stars, but we've faced trials before, and we survived. Now we'll prove that humanity doesn't just belong in the galaxy, we were meant to shape it." Xavier shifted uneasily, still glued to his console. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission. This one is different. It's not in any language we've encountered before, but the pattern, it's forming words. It's trying to communicate with us." "Do we have a translation?" Ilara asked. Xavier hesitated, his fingers moving quickly over the console. "It's coming through now. The language is, well, it's complex, but it's readable. On the main screen, the strange symbols began to resolve into something that looked vaguely familiar. It was a language of shapes and patterns, an abstract geometric language. Slowly, the words translated into a coherent message. "What you are is not what you seem. The test is not one of strength, but of spirit. Will you surrender, or will you fight for the future of your kind?" Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. This was not the first test, but it was certainly the first challenge of its kind. There was something primal about the message. A test of the will, a challenge to humanity's very essence. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a test of their ability to rise above their limitations, to demonstrate their potential to transcend their own nature. Xavier turned to Ilara, his face grim. "It's clear. They want us to prove something beyond physical prowess. This isn't about how strong we are. It's about how far we're willing to go, how much we're willing to risk." Ilara locked eyes with him. "What do you mean?" "We're being asked to make a choice," he said quietly. "This trial, it's about courage, about whether we'll face the unknown, not with weapons or technology, but with our hearts and minds. Are we willing to trust in something larger than ourselves?" Ilara's mind raced. If this was about spirit, about the core of what it meant to be human, then the challenge was greater than any they had faced. They had fought wars, struggled against alien threats, and even fought among themselves. But to face a trial of this magnitude, one where their very humanity was in question, that was something different. A low hum filled the ship, and the voice returned, almost soothing in its tone. "There are 3 paths before you. The path of destruction, the path of submission, and the path of unity. Choose wisely, for the future of your kind depends on your choice." Ilara's mind spun with possibilities. Destruction, submission, unity. What did that even mean? Was this some sort of test to prove their worthiness as a species? Could it be that humanity was being tested for something far greater, something that transcended the individual and embraced the whole? The crew was silent, each person feeling the weight of the question. This was no longer just about the fleet, no longer just about survival. It was about what kind of future humanity would choose. A future built on collaboration or on division? Ilara took a deep breath. She had spent her life leading people through crises, but this was different. This was no simple mission. The stakes were nothing less than the future of their entire species, and the answer, whatever it was, would define everything that came next. The trial had truly begun, and it was up to them to decide what. The hum of the ship's systems had faded into the background, leaving an eerie silence that now filled the command center of the horizon. The transmission had ended, leaving only the echo of the mysterious voice in the minds of Ilara and her crew. It wasn't just the uncertainty of the trial that unsettled them. It was the weight of the choices ahead: destruction, submission, unity. 3 paths, each offering its own vision of the future, each carrying its own cost. Ilara stood at the helm, her hands clenched around the console as she processed the magnitude of the decision: the future of humanity. Those words echoed in her thoughts, every beat of her pulse reminding her that whatever choice they made now would resonate through time. The crew was silent, each person grappling with the same question. What path would they take? "I don't know about the rest of you," Holt said, breaking the stillness. His voice was rough, the weight of the moment clearly pressing on him. "But I don't trust this. A trial with no explanation, no guidance. What if they want us to destroy ourselves, to make us vulnerable?" Xavier, who had been scrutinizing the ship's readings, raised an eyebrow. "I don't think that's it. If they wanted us dead, they would have done it already. The light patterns, the messages, they're not hostile. They're probing us." "Probing us for what?" Holt shot back, his frustration evident. "What's the point of this test? We're not some experiment." "Maybe we are," Xavier replied quietly, his eyes scanning the viewport, watching as the distant anomaly flickered with colors and shifting lights. "The universe isn't a fair place. Maybe this trial isn't about right or wrong. Maybe it's about our ability to adapt, to rise above what we are." Ilara's gaze fell to the message that had appeared on the console earlier: destruction, submission, unity. Each path was so stark, so absolute, and yet they had no clear guidance on what those choices meant in the context of the trial. Was it a literal test, where they had to physically choose between the options? Or was it a metaphorical challenge, one that tested the very core of who they were? "Captain," Xavier continued, "we've always been a species that refuses to be broken. We've endured war, famine, and the collapse of everything we once knew, and still, we rise. I don't think this is about us anymore. It's about proving to the universe that we belong here, that we're not just survivors, but builders, that we can choose a better future." "Unity," Ilara said the word aloud, testing it on her tongue. "But how can we unify against something we don't fully understand? We've barely even begun to grasp what this trial really means." "And yet, we're still here," Holt pointed out. "Still standing, still moving forward. That's something, right?" Ilara looked around at her crew, each person a reflection of humanity's strength and resilience. Their faces were filled with a mix of uncertainty, determination, and fear. But there was something else, too. The spark of that unyielding human spirit. The refusal to bend, to bow, or to break. "We'll choose unity," Ilara declared, her voice steady, cutting through the tension like a beacon of light. "Not because it's easy, not because it's the safest choice, but because it's the only choice we can make. This trial isn't just about us. It's about the future we leave for those who come after us. It's about showing the universe what we're capable of." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crew. Holt, though still skeptical, nodded his approval. "If we're doing this, Captain, we need to be ready for anything. No one knows what we'll face next." Xavier's fingers danced across the console, working on analyzing the data that streamed in from the anomaly. "The light patterns are stabilizing," he said. "It's like they're waiting for us to make our move." Ilara nodded. "And we will. Whatever happens next, we face it together." Just as she finished speaking, the voice returned. It was softer this time, more intimate, almost like a whisper. "The path of unity is not for the faint of heart, but it is the path that will shape your future. It is the path that will forge you into something greater than what you are. Choose now." The crew fell silent once more, the weight of the decision heavy on their shoulders. There was no turning back. If they chose unity, They would be embracing something far beyond their understanding. They would have to trust in each other, in humanity's collective strength. It wasn't a choice to be taken lightly, but Ilara knew it was the right one. "We choose unity," Ilara said firmly, her voice carrying across the command center. "We choose to face the unknown together, as one. We will build a future, not just for ourselves, but for the galaxy." The lights outside the ship flared, the colors shifting in a mesmerizing dance. The anomaly responded, pulsing with a new intensity, as if acknowledging their decision. And then there was silence. For a long moment, nothing happened. The crew held their breath, waiting, wondering what the next phase of the trial would bring. Ilara could feel the tension in the air, the anticipation hanging like a thick fog. They had made their choice, and now they would have to live with the consequences. But as the seconds passed, she realized something. Something that gave her hope. They had faced the unknown. They had chosen unity, not out of certainty, but out of courage. And in that moment, Ilara knew that humanity had already passed the hardest part of the trial. They had refused to be broken, refused to be divided. They had chosen to stand together. The future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. The quiet that followed their declaration was almost unbearable. The crew of the Horizon sat in tense anticipation, waiting for the repercussions of their decision to unfold. The anomaly outside the ship glowed more intensely, its light now flashing, in rhythmic pulses, as if acknowledging their choice. The strange, celestial architecture they had seen moments ago began to shift and expand, revealing vast stretches of the unknown. It was as though the very fabric of space itself was bending, welcoming them into a new realm. Ilara stood in front of the command console, eyes fixed on the viewport. Her pulse quickened, but she forced herself to stay calm. They had chosen unity. Humanity had chosen to step beyond its limits, to transcend the very divisions that had once torn them apart. And now the test was not yet complete. They had made their decision, but the universe would have its say. The question was, would humanity's choice be enough? The crew remained silent, each person processing the enormity of what was happening. Holt stood at his station, his jaw clenched as he observed the steady rise in the anomaly's intensity. "It's changing," he said almost to himself. "It's not just the light anymore. The whole structure is moving, shifting like it's alive." Xavier Lee, still focused on his readings, nodded. "It's like we're in a kind of transition. The anomaly's no longer just a phenomenon. It's a gateway, one that responds to us. It's trying to connect with us." Ilara's thoughts raced. "We're not just facing a test anymore, are we? It's like we've crossed into something else, something beyond what we could have ever imagined." Suddenly, the ship shuddered, a low rumble vibrating through the hull. The crew tensed. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered, momentarily, casting the room in darkness before they returned to normal. The voice returned, this time stronger, more resonant, like the voice of the cosmos itself, speaking directly into their minds. "You have chosen the path of unity. It is not without sacrifice, but it is the path that will change you, and all that you will touch." Ilara's heart skipped a beat. There was no turning back now. They had chosen the path that would shape not only their destiny, but the future of countless others. She glanced around at the faces of her crew. They were ready to face whatever came next. "Brace for impact," Ilara ordered, her voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. She gripped the armrest of her chair, preparing for whatever the universe had in store. The ship lurched again, harder this time, and a high-pitched hum filled the air. Outside, the anomaly exploded in a burst of light so bright it seemed as if the very stars themselves had gone supernova. The horizon was swallowed by the light. For a few moments, the crew was left in stunned silence, unsure of where they were or what had happened. The ship was no longer in the same space, no longer within the reach of the anomaly. The fabric of reality had shifted, and they were somewhere else, somewhere new. "Report," Ilara commanded, her voice sharp as she scanned the monitors. She had no idea what they were facing now, but they had to be prepared. Xavier's hands flew across the console. We're in a different sector of space. I can't pinpoint exactly where we are, but it's not like anything we've seen before. It's like we've crossed into a new dimension of the galaxy, one that doesn't follow the same rules." Holt turned to Ilara, his expression one of awe and disbelief. "Captain, this is impossible. We've crossed into a place beyond our understanding. We're standing on the edge of something that doesn't even make sense in our old terms." "Something new," Ilara murmured, her gaze softening. She looked out the viewport, but what she saw wasn't just a star system. It was a vast, interconnected web of glowing structures, massive, ancient, and seemingly alive. The galaxy beyond them was no longer filled with the cold, lifeless void they knew. It was full of movement, of energy, of life, and it was waiting for them. The voice returned, echoing through the ship, as if reverberating through every fiber of their being. "You have crossed the threshold. You have chosen the future, not as it was, but as it can be. The trial is complete, but the journey has only just begun." Ilara looked at her crew, her heart swelling with pride. They had done it. They had proven that humanity was not just a species of survivors, but one capable of growth, of unity, and of transcendence. The test had not been about strength or intellect or even technology. It had been about something deeper, about what it meant to be human, to stand, not as individuals, but as a collective force capable of shaping the galaxy. "Set course for the center of the cluster," Ilara said, her voice steady, filled with purpose. "It's time to see what the future holds." The B crew sprang into action, a sense of unity and resolve filling the air. They had faced the trial. They had chosen unity, and now they would build a new future, one that would echo through the stars for generations to come. As the horizon moved toward the heart of the unknown galaxy, Ilara allowed herself a rare moment of peace. They had proven themselves. Humanity had faced the darkness and emerged not just intact, but stronger than ever. And in that moment, she knew this was